Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about a couple topics that were requested regarding subconscious excuses that avoidants use to avoid relationships. Now, a lot of people know the more common excuses, but today I'm actually going to talk about real fears, which are also the common ones, but they continue to use it more as an excuse. And it can sometimes blend into that excuse territory because they're holding on to the fear when in actuality, there's a part of them that could know better. I don't know how to explain that, but as we talk about the points, you will kind of understand because these points are a little bit more specific. And a lot of them are things that you guys are dealing with, that a lot of people in my consulting calls are dealing with. And in general, it's maybe just it's more obvious to me at this point. And they are some things that people don't always bring up. So I would like to do it. And the first one is actually the one that a lot of people were asking about. If the avoidant has children, do they sometimes use the children in some shape or form to not commit? Okay. And so, yes, there are a couple ways that they do this. And I'm not saying that the rationale behind this doesn't have some validity because it does. But the way it's done is sometimes it can lean into that excuse territory where the reasoning is no longer as prominent because perhaps you guys have resolved those issues or those fears. So I'm going to give an example so that you can understand. Perhaps originally they said, I'm not really comfortable getting married because I don't know if this person will be good to my kids. Let's say that was the first concept. But now they know, let's say a year later, that you are going to be good to their kids. So that no longer makes sense. And so they may come up with another one. I'm afraid that getting married will affect my children's mental health, for example. Okay, so maybe the kids are happy and they actually like you and their mental health is improving because you're adding benefit to the family. So that's not making any sense either. And so you're seeing that the post is changing, but the concept is still kids. Kids is now the excuse. So why? Why does this happen? Okay. They may actually have a real fear of interpreting that the relationship may be affected because of children, the variable of children. But another aspect is that children is just they're a delicate it's a delicate case to have children and add somebody else into the family. And so it's actually just a good excuse for them to avoid commitment, but it might not be valid at one point. And so if this is a case, what do you do? It's tricky. It is tricky. You need a lot of rapport for what I'm about to share. Don't say it to somebody who you've just been dating for like 2 weeks. Please don't. You will have to mention that you've noticed that the reason they don't want to commit regarding their kids changes. Okay. So you need to gather a little bit of data regarding this because a lot of times with avoidance, you do need to be specific. Some of them may get defensive, but that doesn't mean they didn't hear you because at the end of the day, avoiding this conversation is not going to make things better. It's probably going to make things worse. So let's talk about even more of a deeper example. If they said, originally, I'm afraid that my kids won't like you and it'll cause issues with the relationship. That's the first excuse. That has been navigated. No longer is that the issue. The second one is maybe they're afraid of their kids' mental health. Okay, so we'll use the points that we talked about before. And maybe the kids are doing well. They're happy. They mentioned that they like you. Maybe the kids have even said, I'm wondering when you guys will get married. So the kids are fine. And so at that point, this is a conversation where you can say, I did notice that your kids actually really like me. However, you keep citing that the reason you don't want to get married is because of these aspects. Is that really the reason or is it something else? I won't judge you. I've just noticed that the concept has changed. At first you said this and now you're saying this. Allow them to explain because they might say, yeah, the truth is I'm still afraid. Kids are young, they don't understand. You can say that makes sense. Is there something that I can do to make you more comfortable? Because I'm willing to adjust and compromise, but I just want to know what's going on. You can say that. Or you can mention that, like, to me, that's not fair. You've been telling me things that I wasn't so sure of. And you can have that conversation. You're allowed to make your own decision. But what I would recommend is some middle ground because they're still probably not going to be ready. But what you can do is now that this conversation is open, you can reintroduce it again when more rapport is built and see if their answer changes because most of the time it does. It does, where they might say, yeah, it's not always just the kids. It's just I don't want a situation where we get married and you leave me and then the kids, they trusted you and loved you so much and now it's all gone and now they have to reintroduce somebody else or their hearts are going to get broken and I'm scared of that. Maybe deep inside that's what it is. Usually that's what it is, by the way. That's usually their fear. And then you can say that makes a lot of sense. I can appreciate that. What can we do to mitigate that or reduce that risk? You can have that conversation because usually that's the actual fear. The next one is their past marriage or relationship. This is so common. This is very common. That's why I was like, I'm not even sure I should put this one in because I feel like you guys already know this. But if they got cheated on, they were divorced, whatever the case may be, they will be afraid to get into relationships because of the fear that you will break up with them. And so let's talk about this. If it's cheating specifically, sometimes what you need to do is navigate your how serious you are regarding the commitment. So you don't have to say it continuously, but every now and again you can say, I appreciate how committed we are. You might even say, I'm a very loyal person. I just want you to know that. You can say that every now and again. It will help them. It will help them to slowly navigate those fears without you saying, by the way, I know you're afraid of being cheated on. I'm not going to cheat on you. That might land not as well. You can just say, in general, just letting you know, I'm a loyal person. I believe in those things. It can help them to navigate those fears. The other aspect is it could also be that they just need to be taken slow. The rapport needs to be built because of those fears. And so you can mention every now and again, you don't mind going slow. I know this hurt you. Or if they had opened up, that it hurt you. Don't say it if they didn't open up, but you can say, sometimes I think that the divorce you had affected you. And I want to let you know I'm okay with navigating that with you. Allowing the space to be open about their past without you holding it against them or without you taking it too seriously. Because a lot of times if you take it too seriously, that just becomes more overwhelming and makes them more afraid. Long distance is the next one. Some avoidants actually prefer long distance, but a lot of them are really against long distance, or they almost use it as an excuse. And actually, you guys know that I used to be avoidant, and this was one thing that I did before. So I've never had a long distance relationship. The only relationship I've had is with him, but we have never been long distance. But I remember, like, in the beginning of our relationship, just being honest with you, I know some of you guys will judge me. I've changed, but I would always tell him, like, yeah, if you move away, then we're going to have to break up because I don't do long distance. And some people are like that. But I remember for me, it was more of a rigid expectation because he's not originally from Virginia, where I'm from. He's actually from Indiana. So a lot of times I was thinking maybe he'll go back to Indiana. And he was more open to, we can do long distance. We can work it out. But I use that almost as an excuse so that the relationship wouldn't, I guess there would be some walls, or maybe that could be like in my mind, it's like if he did say that he would go back to Indiana, then the relationship would just stay at arm's length. But that no longer is an issue. But some avoidants, they have an actual fear of long distance because it almost is like there's another barrier and relationships are difficult. And then long distance just means that we have to make much more adjustments. And like for me, it's almost like, okay, if you were in Indiana and I'm in Virginia, I have to not, I don't feel this way now, but before it's like I have to change my schedule. I have to go fly there. You have to fly there. And then we have to make so many different changes. Whereas when we first started dating, he lived like, I don't know, 15 minutes away. And that was so much easier. I could just see him. Sometimes we could see each other much more like easily throughout the day or throughout the week because he's right there. But if he was in Indiana, it would be much more difficult. And some avoidants are afraid of that. But have a conversation and mention what I would recommend is mention the ease of how it works and sometimes add some clarification. You might say, we can do it. We don't have to do it as often. We can see each other once a month, once every other month, and we can just fly out for one weekend. If you add how easy the long distance might be, it will help. It will help because that was the barrier that I had, just the fact that it would be very complicated. The next one is, okay, so this one is tricky, really tricky, but avoidants do not do this later in the relationship. They typically only do it in the beginning. The differing views you guys have on very small preferences can sometimes affect them. It's way more common with dismissive avoidants. I don't know if many fearful avoidants do this at all. Some do, but very uncommon. So for example, let's say you like horror and they like comedy. Okay. I'm actually using myself and my significant other as an example. I don't really like comedy, but I don't like deep stuff watching TV because it reminds me of work. And he loves all that stuff. He likes horror. He likes all the stuff, right? He likes all the like gangster type of stuff. He likes all of the crime, gore, all of that. I don't like any of that. Like I will watch like a family friendly comedy that I'm barely paying attention to because I don't want to think about work. But for him, he likes that stuff. If I were to have this deactivation, which I didn't, I did a little bit in the beginning, but it healed pretty quickly, is you might think, okay, we have different movies. That means we're very, very different people, which is not true. But avoidance will like really, really stick to that one. If this is the issue, remind them of your similarities. The similarities will help because that's what helped me. We have so many similarities. Who cares about the movies we watch? That really helps. But a lot of times avoidants get really stuck on like smaller issues like this. And the next one is if you said something a while ago that bothered them, sometimes what happens is they hold on to this. Fearful avoidance might actually crash out and tell you. But normally, if this is the issue, sometimes you can ask. If they do finally bring it up, you can say, hey, I'm sorry you were holding that back. I wish you told me sooner. And say it in a calm way. And normally, they are more receptive. You might even say, I'm sorry for that. Thanks for telling me. I'll keep that in mind. Normally, that really warms them up. And so let's summarize. They may have kids and they may use that to not commit because they do have a fear deep inside, but they're using excuses to avoid that fear. Their past relationship or marriage, long distance, different views about smaller issues. What you have to do with this one very commonly is just mention your similarities. And if something bothered them, just apologize. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.